In this video, you're going to learn some techniques and strategies for remote auditing. We've got a group of partners, consultants, people who train auditors, and they're going to give us some techniques, insights on how to get effective remote auditing performed. Hi, Peter from Mango, and welcome to Compliance Conversations. Were there any unexpected outcomes, both positive and negative?
Yeah, look, the negative one is differences in technological or IT ability, okay, and the IT infrastructure that may exist at a client. So, and that's really, I guess, where the planning comes in, because I guess when we first started doing this, we'd tee up an interview with someone and they didn't actually know how to log in to do the interview, for example. Yeah. Or the internet connectivity was that poor that you just couldn't do the interview. So they're part of the things we learned in terms of from the initial days when we to make sure that you've got that planning done, and also in particular, if someone's not familiar with how to use the technology, to allow time to go through that, because sometimes they'll nod and they'll say, yes, we know how to do that, but when it actually comes around to doing the interview, the reality is something different. So you need to make sure that that's planned for and there's time allowed. And in terms of the benefits, well, you know, the obvious benefit from the client is we don't charge as much to a client for a remote audit as we do if we have to hop in a car and drive for half a day to get something. So there's an obvious benefit for the client in terms of a lower cost, and in terms for most of the parts of the audit, the standard's at least as good. In some areas, it's a lot better, because I said you tend to focus on getting the all the available information and records that actually support conformance. When you're out on site, that's not necessarily the case. You won't look for the same depth of evidence.
I think the only negative that I've found so far, and that happened this week actually, and that was the client that I was auditing. I asked them to provide certain information ahead of the audit, and basically what they did was they effectively just loaded up their full management system and every record they could put their hand on, and they moved it into a shared location. And the unfortunate side with that is that the navigation through that was extremely time consuming. So I think our lessons learned from us will be that, you know, we maybe in some clients we need to make it absolutely crystal clear exactly the documents that they send, and only those documents, and don't give us everything. The only other negative from it, as I've mentioned right at the start, is where it is a critical operational task that you have to physically see what's going on, see the way that someone is operating something or undertaking some manual handling. That is a negative side of it. However, I think we would never normally remote audit that type of activity or that type of audit anyway. It's just simply been because of lockdown we've not been able to go and do that. I think in a normal scenario, if someone was to come to me, and let's take for example UCAS, if I was to be sitting on a panel of UCAS, who's the governing body for the certification bodies in the UK, if I was to be sitting on a panel with them, I would absolutely be an advocate of remote auditing. And I think probably around about 60 to 70% of all audit activities within an audit can be done remotely, with the remainder, where required, needing some, you know, sort of site-based evidence.
Positive outcomes is the fatigue management for me and the guys that work for me helped, because they weren't traveling at all. Whereas before you'd have guys driving and flying all around the country. Now they don't. So that's been a really positive outcome. The negative outcome is the frustration that it takes with the time to get the things done, whereas you only have a certain amount of time to do it, and that time just gets eaten away because things aren't necessarily ready. So those outcomes, yeah, they're the two major positive and negative. I think the positive outweighs the negative. I don't like guys driving 6 hours to go and do an audit. I like that they're not traveling. I like they get to see their families. And as people are getting more and more used to it, that negative side of that frustration is going away because people are getting more and more used to it. The technology, by now you can turn and say, oh, let's have a Zoom call, and everyone goes, yep, sweet, no worries, we know how to run it. They know how to share their server, they know how to do all those things. And people going to cloud-based systems is helping because they're finding that because they're working remotely, they're spending the time to actually go and look into and investigate this stuff to make life simpler. So I think the longer it goes, those negative items will go away. The concern that some of the records you're seeing might be presented to you as opposed to the reality of what's going on in their business, that's always there. But we've got to take people on their face value.
Look, I guess the unexpected outcome for me is just how, from a positive perspective, it's just how efficiently it works. As I mentioned, not much drop off in terms of the efficiency and achieving the audit objective. I have worked with, for example, I do second party audits for a project engineering company. It's worked very well for them because it's been very time efficient for their kind of project managers and engineers just to come in at the allocated time. We're seeing as much evidence as we've ever seen with them. So that kind of time efficiency, one obvious opportunity I've touched on in some blogs is that, yes, if an organisation like a water body or something with many operational sites, yes, it does give you the opportunity to visit more sites within a limited time and resource kind of budget as well.
I wouldn't say unexpected, but just one of the things that I guess made me realise that there is certainly positives and negatives. The negatives for me were very much in the getting out there and looking at processes side of things. I've had audits that's worked really well, where we've had a person who's had their phone and it's been nice and clear and easy to see, and they've been able to smoothly walk me through around and describe a process and what have you. Whereas I've had other ones where the internet connection was a bit wobbly, the person was bouncing around all over the place, and I'm almost getting seasick trying to watch it. So that was a negative. On the positive side, I've been able to audit some clients sitting in my lounge room, and I haven't had to drive quite a long way to see them, when either that would have been hard in the past or not viable in the current climate. So just the positives are that you can get the same thing potentially done for less cost, and you can get it done whenever you need to. So I wouldn't say I'm unexpected. They're the sorts of things that you could predict, but they realise themselves when you go through those processes.
I think it's quite relaxed. The remote auditing, auditing can be quite stressful, particularly for the auditee. We found that people have been a lot more relaxed, particularly if they're in their home environments as well. So I think that's been a positive outcome. I think the negative outcome is that because you're not sitting in front of the people, I think there is the opportunity for people to fabricate evidence, etc. Not that wasn't a viable option when you were auditing them face to face. I just think that it does create a little bit more flexibility around the audit. So positive, more people were more relaxed. Possible negative is that, one, you can't review the physical site conditions, and I think there is a greater opportunity for creative auditee behaviour.
An obvious benefit with doing remote audits has to be not travelling. It's much more efficient. It's better for the environment. So that's has been a massive benefit. In terms of negatives, I guess what you will never capture from doing something on a remote basis is the fine detail of being there. When you first put this question to me, I remember one particular occasion I was walking on site. We were doing an environmental audit for a university that was priding itself on its environmental buying credentials. And I walked in and I could smell fresh paint. Now, straight away I realised from the smell, from the odour of the paint, that they hadn't specified VOC-free paint, and so what they were doing in practice didn't match what they were saying. So odour is something that you won't ever capture in a remote audit. So that there are downsides, but I think for the most part there are very, very many benefits to be gained from certainly increase in the number of remote audits. I don't think that site audits will disappear completely, and I don't think they should. But certainly a lot of things like reviewing management review meetings, audit reports, looking up documents and reviewing risk assessments, there's no reason why a lot of that can't be done remotely.
I think the fact that we were able to, what was really nice was being able to grab evidence as we went. And I don't know whether it helped the auditor with their reporting later on, but being able to, as you walk around, just grab screenshots of what's happening and annotate it as you went was really helpful. Being able to show on one screen, one part of the screen, this is what you're looking at, and then pull up in Mango. For instance, the goods inwards inspection was a really good example. We're using the Mango audit module for that. And so real time, we're able to pull up the audit for the thing that we're looking at and have them side by side and show the exact photograph of the item that's at goods inwards and the evidence, so that 100% tied up. And so that was a really nice thing to be able to do for the auditor, even remotely.
To all the partners who contributed today, thank you, and hopefully the audience is going to learn some new techniques, your observations, and maybe they can get some value from it and maybe change the way they're doing it. So thank you.